Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Greg and Joe Turbo Show. Uh, I'm your host, Joe, joined as always by the new and improved for 2024, Mr. Greg Minicello.
Wait,
Hey,
hold
Greg,
on.
how's it
What's
going?
improved? What? How
I,
could
I
I?
don't know. I'm just making assumptions here. I'm
All
making
right,
a
fair.
new year, new me kind of thing, you know?
All right.
But
Nope.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. It's our first show in 2024, so we're happy to be back. Um, Joining us today, super lucky, longtime Turbo, someone with tons of experience and knowledge of all things AI ops and optimization. Gena Bane. Hey, Gena, how are you?
Hi there. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Good to
So
have you.
you are our first guest of 2024.
That's
It's
right.
very
I'm
exciting.
honored.
Kicking
No
it off.
pressure.
I'm excited. I hope
Yeah.
you guys are excited.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, we thought, New Year, obviously there's a focus moving into 2024 for IBM. Obviously, Turbonomic and FinOps and all these things are going to play a super critical role, I think, in a successful year. You're kind of on the front line of those efforts. So we thought it'd be great to, have a conversation with you, get your thoughts, some of your insights, what you're seeing, what you're thinking. And yeah, we just appreciate having you.
Yep.
Yeah, no, let's do it. I think it's an exciting space to be in, so ask away.
Yeah, maybe we can start with just a little bit of background. Who is Gena? How long have you been here? What do you do? And
Yeah,
go.
yeah, absolutely. So, I've been in tech sales for 20 plus years, believe it or not, selling everything under the sun, both private sector, public sector. But most recently, I was a part of the Turbonomic acquisition that IBM made, and really excited about what the vision is for IBM when it comes to why they purchased Turbonomic, Apptio, as well as some other solutions to build out their FinOps framework and what they're trying to do there. But before we get into all of that, what do I love to do? I love to be outside, go hiking, go snowboarding, things of that nature, and that makes me very happy.
You were saying you live with bears before we started recording today. So
Yes, there are bears and mountain lions. Matter of fact, someone posted a picture of 4 mountain lions crossing through their cam that they had out at night. That was in the middle of the state, though. So, but
that's
gorgeous
a no for me.
photo.
That's a no
Great,
for me.
great for a photo, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, wildlife is grand here, and I actually like it.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. It sounds awesome.
You got the big sky out there.
Yeah, Big Sky Country, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, that is the motto. So I mean, maybe we can kind of just start with, how was last year for you? Maybe what were some of the things you were noticing and with your existing customers or with prospects, and what is that kind of making you or kind of leading you to think, I guess, moving into this year? Like what are some of the things that have been coming up more often, I guess?
Yeah, I think customers are really starting to get the value of, okay, why did IBM purchase Turbonomic? I think really being able to understand that we need more than just having that understanding of reporting, but how do we actually do something with it, right? Not getting caught up in features and functions, but now how do we apply that value to our business? And so I think customers today are trying to figure out, this is really great, but we can't scale, and this is why this is important to us. So I think being able to work with my customers and understanding where they are in that model of, okay, are we just getting to the point of understanding our data? Now, how do we work with it? How do we get it to work for us? And how do we change culture based off of data is allowing me to really understand, okay, this is where I need to step in and bring in the right resources to help them meet those goals.
That's good stuff. What a couple of things that I know from working with you, Gena, in your background and your history is that you used to work for and sell Tableau, which is BI tool, visualization, not necessarily optimization, AI, anything like that, like we do at Turbo, but it's taking that data, slicing it up, and getting meaningful insights out of it, which is something that everyone wants to do, everyone needs to do. What when you were working in that role, what were some of the challenges? What were the things that you were hearing from customers that were important to them that they get out of some kind of a reporting or BI platform?
Right. I mean, let's be honest, like we know we can't keep up with technology. We know we can't keep up with the data that's coming in. And so if it's garbage in, it's garbage out, right? And so the reports that you have are useless if it's not good data. And so one of the things that Tableau allowed me to do with my clients is tell a story with your data, right? Understanding your business. And let's be honest, we all remember stories. We don't remember necessarily data points unless you can communicate it in a story. And so being able to take that data and then deliver it in that fashion really helps customers understand it. And not only for their own, department, but perhaps how it impacts others within the organization, right? Yeah. And so with what we're doing with Turbonomic and, some of the other technologies that IBM is acquiring is, customers immediately want to know, like, how do I report on this? How do I report on this? And we need to be able to say to them, hold on, we're going to get to that, but let's make sure you're using the product right, and you're optimizing and you have the right tags and the right, use cases in place. So that way, when you do report something, it's actually going to mean something to your clients or to your customer, right?
I bet what you're saying there with what's the story, what's the meaningful piece that I'm talking about with this data, because nobody wants to look at a spreadsheet of raw data and go, oh yeah, I'm going to pull something out of this. There's some context here. There's something meaningful. And in my role in professional services, it's particularly important to be able to pull out from that data. Here are the important things that you've done with, for example, Turbonomic as a platform. This is why it should be meaningful to you. This is the value that it demonstrates that you've gotten out of this product that you've used up until this point. So it most especially, like I said, in my role, that's important to be able to tell a story, to be able to pull out the important and useful information. And like you said, if you haven't done anything, you haven't fed any information into the system, well, A, you got nothing to report on. And B, if you're putting junk data into your data warehouse or your reporting solution, all you're going to get out the other side is more junk. And then to layer on top of all of that, if you don't have good ways to slice it and to build at least some sort of canned dashboards or canned visualizations of that data, people are going to get lost. They're going to get behind. They're not going to know what it is they're supposed to be looking for. And you can't tell that story. You never will tell that story.
Yeah, and you have to be able to put it in context, So, I mean, it's kind of like the news today, right? So it's typically garbage because it's only based off the content they want to deliver. And so if you don't have, the true understanding of the big picture within your organization with that, why that data is significant and being able to communicate that, you're only going to see a piece of the puzzle. So I think, as you're saying, like being able to have that full picture, being able to understand how it impacts everyone that might touch that data point, even though it might mean something different for someone else, is really important.
Yeah. So you're talking about that puzzle, and that seems to be the one of the ways you can describe how our customers are using Turbonomic is I've got all these pieces, I've got all these functions, I've got all these things that I can do with it. But what do these pieces do, and how do I put them together, and how do I make a picture out of all this so I can actually get some value out of this? And I wonder, like, as Joe had alluded to, you're on the front lines. Like you hit the customer first. You understand. You see what it is that they have for challenges. What are like the key points that you hear from customers as you're talking to them about that platform that you can tell Joe and I about us and our listeners?
Yeah, I think what they're really impressed with is the fact that we are not just a reactive solution, right? And that's how we differentiate ourselves from monitoring solutions, because that's almost the first hurdle we have to, get over is say, no, we're not reactive. We're not a monitoring solution, right? We're a decision engine. We are actually allowing you to not pick out of choices so you can take a recommendation, because you still then have to figure out the impact, right? If what's going to happen and is it truly the best? No, we are giving you the best decision. So that's why we're a decision engine, and you can actually execute on it, right? And feel good about that. So I think that's one of the first things that we have to achieve is just educating our customers that we're a little bit different, right? And this is why. But this is also the return you're going to get on that, right? You're going to be able to automate. You're going to be able to reduce risk. You're going to be able to move to more of a proactive state to be more progressive within your organization.
It's interesting too because it sounds very simple. Just tell someone, "Hey, we're different, and here's why." But I'm sure we've all worked with folks when we have those initial conversations, and they're like, "Okay, that sounds good, but so when do I get the alert though?" And you're like, "No. We don't do that. Like that's not right. We're not everything I just said. We don't do that." And so really like while that sounds super simple, like that first part represents a culture shift as well, right? And just the way that people have kind of come into this industry to think about how they manage these environments. It's just anything else like that is like sort of the goalpost there. And so when you say it's different, they still assume it's somewhere in the middle there. And you're like, no. It's like it's on the next field over. Like we're not even talking the same thing. And so like that it's a challenge, right? And then once I agree though, that is the first step. And then once you get kind of that kind of going, then I think you can kind of really start to move forward and push forward.
Yeah.
But
and I think then you have to get to the point of letting them let go of some control, right? Because Turbonomic does a great job with bringing different departments together because application needs to be able to communicate with infrastructure, right? We need to understand, usually the infrastructure guys may not even know what applications the data belongs to, the resources, and so they have to understand that and communicate and open that door. So being able to give that bridge really helps organizations collaborate better and be able to move forward. So I think if we can then get them to say, listen, this is going to only help your relationship, right? We want to help relationships.
Yes.
And let go of some of the control and really allow the application owners to then execute on decisions, right? You create the threshold, you create the limits, things of that nature, knowing, how much resource is there, because the data is going to tell you based off of usage, but then actually give that work to the application owners because they know their business.
Yeah, and one of the key things that you had said earlier is that Turbonomic isn't giving you choices. It's not saying here's all the things you could do to solve this one problem. It is here is the answer, and it's not just a rigid answer. And what I see what's most fulfilling for me is to see that relationship between an infrastructure, management person, somebody that their life is, for example, running vCenter and making sure that workloads in vCenter and hosts and everything are running correctly. To see them talk to an application team and to be able to have like a discovery session to talk to them and say, how is it that you've got this application configured? Help me understand a little bit more about what this workload does. Is it spiky? Is it always sustained usage? Is it, a memory pig? Is it something that's only seasonal? And watching them pull that information out of application owners because it is pulling, right? And I don't know why that is. Maybe you guys can comment on that if you've seen the same thing, but I seem to see that most oftentimes application owners are kind of cagey about their information. Like, well, don't ask me about my VM. I told you I need 12 gig and leave me alone. But to see them, and even to see from that application owner side, to see them open up and talk about their application, talk about how it's configured, why it's configured the way it is. And then you can take all that information and you can use Turbonomic to whittle down and put together a better use case or a better experience for that application team so that they do see, number one, this isn't go do and I'm not interested in your opinion. It also shows you that these teams care and they understand, they want to understand, they seek and they're curious. And then number three, that I can work with this. I can trust this decision that I got. I took that action. It didn't burn down my application and my business. Maybe I'll try that again with Turbo when they tell me, oh, you need to size up for something, right? So what has that been your experience? I mean, either you can comment on that, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's getting them to say, listen, let's not have the war room conversation when a problem already happened, but let's have the strategy conversation instead, right? Let's get ahead of it and do exactly that. Let's understand what is the purpose of this application? Is it in retail? Is it going to have spikes during, the day before Thanksgiving or Black Friday, I meant to say. I think day before Thanksgiving for party day, right? I think I have it backwards.
Right. Yeah. And like if you're doing a point of sale at the bar, the day before Thanksgiving is important.
I mean, Black Friday is really like a month long now, anyways. Let's be honest.
Right.
You're right. You're right. I mean, it's so true.
Yeah.
Crazy, but yeah, I think being able to move that conversation to more of a strategy, proactive conversation really is how you can engage. But I don't know if I answered your question though. I don't know if Joe wants to chime in. And
I mean, to me, it again kind of comes back to it's a culture thing. I mean, it is a consequence of the way we've organized these teams, right? Where the app team, there's a clear line where they do not cross into the ops team and vice versa, right? And as an app owner, the only thing I care about is my app. And I don't want someone who doesn't care for this app as much as I do, because I put all of my time and effort into it, to mess with it, And historically, right, it's kind of been like a thing where, my dashboard says this, so I don't care what your dashboard says, and so there's never been this level of trust, and it's really that I think that disconnect that has created that situation. And again, I think one of the biggest hurdles initially to get over when we bring Turbo into these organizations is, hey guys, like, let's all just come together on this. Let's all look at the same data. Let's understand that, I'm just as invested in your application performing well as you, the app owner, are, because ultimately our job in IT is just to assure application performance, and that's it. So we're all on the same team here. Let's mend those fences, so to speak, and kind of, get everyone speaking the same language.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the other thing I would probably add to that, the application owners typically pay for a certain amount of resources, right? So now when you have the infrastructure saying, hey, you don't need all of these, at least not the whole time, right? At least not for the full year. We're going to take some back, but we'll ensure you have it when you need it. That conversation's a tough one. And I know a lot of infrastructure departments don't win that conversation, right? So I think that's where you have to go high enough within the organization to understand what is the cost really in having resources that are just sitting there not being used, and kind of pushing it from the top down that we need to really be more agile, right? We need to really be able to use based off of consumption and off of usage, not what was already allocated.
So would that be like moving to more of a mature chargeback model, which would, I guess, kind of tie back into this idea of sort of, being able to report on data more accurately and show back and slice and dice. And again, I think, the big acquisition, we've talked about it here a couple times already, but the addition of Apptio into sort of the portfolio of cloud optimization, I think is a big win for specifically those kinds of situations, right? Where we can pair Turbo and Apptio, and I think makes those conversations easier to have when we can have a mature chargeback, showback approach.
Yeah. And eventually, I think customers will get to a point where when they start creating applications, they're going to be more intelligent in doing so because they move to this model, right? And really building based off of, let's just start with this template, right? But it's going to have the ability to scale up and down based off of needs because of the technologies and solutions that we've brought in and how they integrate together.
Yeah, that was a pretty common theme we had when we talked to Joe Benincasa. One of the things that they do as a development organization is understanding, like, when I create this platform, when I use these pieces of technology, I have to understand how much this is going to cost, right? Because if we're going to sell this as an organization or as IBM to a customer, and they have to run it, for example, in Azure, right? If they're running our software, it's going to cost them something to run it there. And if we don't build it in such a way that it's cost efficient and using the right technology, the right dollars, we're doing them a disservice. So that was one of the concepts that I mean, you think about these things, and it seems obvious after you've heard it from Joe to say it, but like to hear that developers and engineering managers they have that mindset. Here in Turbo, it makes sense. They understand efficiency, they understand the performance, they understand the balance between the two. But knowing that that's a mindset that other organizations have that create software or that don't create software, that maybe even run something that's like off the shelf. It's important to understand and to give them that visibility so that they can understand that. Like, we can show you in Turbo everything that makes up your application, and that's great, right? But you don't necessarily know by looking at like a supply chain, what's this costing me as an organization, or what's this even me as a product owner, what's this cost me? So how do we solve that challenge with Apptio and Cloudability? How do we give them that visibility to show them, even at whatever level of the organization you're in, whether I'm an engineer or I'm a development manager, or if I'm a regional director of development, or some kind of product management as a whole, like how do we put together that view and slice that up across those different levels? And is that something that Apptio and Cloudability brings to the table?
Most definitely. And I think, with the technology business management, being able to have that cost idea not only across the cloud, right, which is what Cloudability brings, but also in the infrastructure is huge. And, the gentleman that started Cloudability has started the FinOps Foundation. And so being able to understand, okay, who's the team, right, that's going to manage this? And many organizations are creating these brand new teams that are doing exactly that. What are the different personas that are going to be involved, right? And then being able to pull in the different domains that impact their roles. And so organizations are trying to understand, okay, this is technology, but it's also processes, right? And it's also the people involved. And being able to have that complete visibility and changing their culture is really the biggest issue, right? Moving from something that's more of like old school to agile, but which is really something that's been out there for a while, I think, but having them actually execute on that and creating the right teams and processes, it takes time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's part. You've said it a number of times, Joe. You've mentioned that changing the culture is the most difficult thing. And I think that, for me, at least in the role that I'm in, watching that happen and being a part of that and trying to and helping customers to get through that transition, that cultural change, it's very rewarding. It's very fulfilling. But it's not easy. It's if nothing, it's probably the hardest thing to do. Most especially when you're working with organizations that have done it the way that they've done it as long as they can remember, which as a side note is probably my least favorite phrase, is that's always the way we've done it, and we're just going to continue to do it that way, right? If you don't have that open mind, if you don't have that curiosity, if you don't look and seek for understanding to maybe say, like, just take a step back and say to yourself, is there a better way?
You're a philosophizer, Greg. I like it. I like it. I
right. Good thoughts. This is the new and improved Greg for 2024.
Yeah, this is. I knew it. See, I knew it. That's why I said it.
You let it out of the box. I was trying to work it in naturally, organically, but you just read off like a Band-Aid.
Well, listen, I will say this. I agree with what you just said, and it's a good opportunity to throw a plug in for Expert Labs services, because I think that's one of the tools that we have. Yeah, to help to kind of change that culture, right? I mean, as a salesperson, obviously you're close with the customer, but a lot of that interaction, a lot of that time spent is up front, right? And then not to say you don't still meet with them and you're still connected with them, but sort of that day-to-day work of changing the culture can fall to someone from our Expert Labs team whose job really is to kind of get people to trust the platform slowly, because it's a slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. And so I guess maybe to that point again, because you've been a part of very, very many deals with Turbo, and I'm sure you've seen customers who have and who haven't had services. And I guess what is your position on services and sort of the value?
Yeah. It's an absolute. Like, customers need to buy services with their licenses. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, a lot of people don't like to read directions and try to figure things out by themselves, but let's shorten the curve here, right? And let's actually pull in the experts to allow you realize that value as quickly as possible, because Turbonomic is very easy to install. We all know that. However, there's so much under the covers that you can do within your organization. And every organization is different. So understanding your own internal processes, integrations, right, plugins, whatever it is, that is where the expertise is needed, because we're going to be able to help you understand, okay, first let's focus, what is the ultimate goal from a business perspective? Let's make sure the technology is going to align with that. And then we're going to build a journey map with you to get there. And it is baby steps, right? First, it's, you know, installing it, making sure we have all the right targets, making sure that we are going after the low-hanging fruit, because immediately you're going to start seeing value, especially if you're able to execute on the actions. But the other piece is everyone will see Turbo's, you know, the decisions, but then they don't want to execute in Turbo. And we're like, why would you not want to do that?
Right.
Right?
Why
now
just
you're making
why did you instrument all this? Why did you go through the work of putting the permissions in place? Yeah.
Right.
Just click the button.
Now you're making us another reporting tool for you, where you're creating another manual effort, which I could have sworn the senior leadership just said you wanted to get away with that and why you brought us in.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So maybe we need to have another reconnect with your leadership on how, you know, what's the goal here. So if they can actually get to the point of executing within the product, it goes so much faster and easier. And the best way to do that is to ensure you have the expert labs teams there to hold your hand.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you don't get there, right? Yeah, and even in part of the journey that we have is that the first step of the journey is that decision, that automation of the decision, and then manual execution. And look, there's times where people don't trust Turbo right out of the box. I don't know if this thing's is gonna execute it in the way it ought to. And there are even times, and you and I have worked through this with customers, Gena, where they need to have a security exception, and they need to have some kind of approval to let Turbonomic do the automation and make the change in a production or even a development environment. So I get all that, but that you're absolutely right that is the goal. That should be the goal. That should be the target that you're headed for, is executing this in Turbo, even if it's just tick the box and hit execute yourself. That you are building that trust, so that you are getting to a place where you don't have to tick the box anymore. You can move on and work on the things that are important to you and meaningful and exciting and growth, instead of looking backwards, always ticking the box and pressing the buttons.
But I get why they have trust issues, right?
Yeah.
They were relying on monitoring solutions where we know it's close to 80% of recommendations are not even taken because they can't trust those recommendations.
Yeah.
And so we get it. There's a trust issue.
Yep.
But let us help you overcome that with the data itself. And it's just getting them to do that.
Yep. Agreed.
So buy services.
That's
buy services.
Right. Hey, you may even luck out and get me. Who knows?
Yeah, hey, listen, that's true. Greg is available.
Star.
Yeah.
That's right.
Star.
Ask for Greg.
Yeah.
Ask for Greg. Yeah.
Double G, Greg.
Yeah, I love it. So, I mean, I guess, obviously, we've kind of already touched on it, but everything is kind of moving towards this idea of FinOps and being more responsible. And I think they pay us to say this, of course, but I do believe it that we are pretty well positioned in that space with sort of the products that IBM has invested in. So how do you see this year kind of shaking out? I guess is there a specific focus in mind? Are you trying to do like the better together story with things like Instana, Turbo, and Apptio? Or is it what is your overall? You don't have to give away everything, but give us a little peek into what's Gena's strategy.
I think at the end of the day, from an IBM perspective, right, it's really being able to present the best solution forward. And IBM has those products, right? Now with the Apptio solutions, with Turbonomic, even partnering with Flexera, they can really provide the complete solution in ensuring cost efficiency, cost performance, you name it. And so being able to also use those products together to automate and help customers get to that more proactive state is what we're going to be able to do. So I think the better together story is very, very strong. I think customers already know this. So whether they have already invested in Turbo or already invested in some of the Apptio solutions, they're now trying to understand how do they work together And we just have to make sure we make it a very clear, concise picture as how that works.
Yeah. I wonder, I know you've gotten this question, Gena, and I want to hear you answer it because I haven't heard you answer it. How does something like Watson X or AI factor into what we do with automation, IT delivery, whether it's chargeback, if it's FinOps? When you get that question from a customer, what is your response? What's your thought or your perception of what that answer is?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to know that IBM is understanding what the ask is for from the market, and it has its own technology to help find the solution, right? And so being able to incorporate it in the technologies it has today that clients are already using today is going to really help them move faster to get the information that they need, right? So being able to ask within the technology, hey, how can I create perhaps this group or something along those lines, and knowing that there's going to be AI in the technology to get there is really exciting, because it's going to, again, remove a lot of manual effort that might be needed and knowledge, right, that might be needed that you just don't have, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And especially when you have a technology set, right, if we want to look at the whole FinOps portfolio that IBM offers, you don't know everything that's going to be incorporated in there. So being able to ask and find out what that is and have the technology tell you and learn based off of your usage is going to be huge.
Good answer.
So I think there's a lot to come, and I think it's pretty exciting as to what that might look like.
For sure.
It's going to be a great year. I'm excited for this year. I think.
Yeah.
Watch out, 24.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also too, I mean, like last year was kind of like a transition year for all of us legacy Turbo folks, right? We were kind of still getting acclimated into the IBM ecosystem.
Yep.
And I think this year is the first year that we're kind of starting a new year as already sort of established as part of this IBM ecosystem.
Officially blue washed, like the shirt?
Look, they even give you shirts. Wait, where's the, here, nope, here it is. There it is. It was on one of the things. I knew it. There it is. Yeah, this is my travel shirt. My wife actually laughed at me when we went on vacation and I wore this on the airplane. She's like, "Did you have like so many other shirts? Why?" It's a comfortable shirt. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
No, nothing wrong.
Representing.
What are you most excited for? I mean, we kind of put people on the spot. We don't ever tell anyone we're going to ask this, but what are you most excited for this year? Be it Turbo or not Turbo or IBM or whatever. What are you looking forward to?
I think I'm most excited to see how the teams are coming together, right? I think Apptio is a year or so behind Turbo in becoming blue washed and becoming incorporated into the IBM family. So knowing that they are like a brother to us in regards to what we're going to be doing for our clients and within IBM is really exciting. So I'd like to, just for everyone to pay attention, right? Get involved, ask questions, show up to webinars and meetings, and really be able to get a good understanding and ahead of the game, because I feel that you will be behind if you don't.
I assume now you're probably doing some more traveling now, or is it, since I know with sort of COVID for a while there, none of us were really traveling a lot, and being in sales, travel is a big part of the job, and like kind of like you said, like getting out there and seeing what's out there, these conventions and trade shows and stuff. Are you planning on doing a lot of that this year? Is that part of the plan for Gena?
I think it's important as part of a salesperson's role is to be able to have that face time. Everyone's going to be a little bit different as to how much of that they need to do, depending on their customers they already know, customers they need to get to know. So I think for me, it's really, like, how can I ensure that I'm present? I'm not just a voice on the phone, or, here's the other thing, right? Like, web access are great, but let's be honest, it strains our eyes. We don't really like it. Like, no one likes it that much, you know, but being able to just have that side conversation, you know, being able to have that rapport and being able to talk to your clients, it's such a better experience when you can do it in person, because you just get to know them better. They get to know you better. And that's how a salesperson, I think, can also become a better business advisor, is that they're not just, you know, a face in a box.
They're not the Wizard of Oz, or they're not just like some voice.
Right, exactly.
Right. And it's always fun to find out that someone is much taller than you actually thought they were. So you're like, oh, I see you on WebEx. Oh, I thought you were short, and you're like 6'9". And you're like, yeah, like, whoa. It's always jarring that first time. That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, Gena, I mean, again, this being our first show back, we are very, very happy and lucky to have you on, and thanks for making the time. I know, especially at the beginning of the year, it's a busy time for all the sales folks, you know, figuring out accounts and all that stuff. So thanks for taking the time to chat with us. You're always welcome back.
Appreciate you.
Come back and chat with us. And if anyone's interested in Turbo or Apptio, I would say just call Gena directly. Just call. We won't actually provide her phone number, but you know.
We'll set up a switchboard.
No, but we do appreciate it. And for everyone watching, you know, if you want more great information about Turbo, about Apptio, about Instana, about anything IBM, check out our community pages. And we will see everyone on the next one, where maybe we can give it away a little bit, Greg. I think we're hoping to start a series where we begin to introduce more IBM products.
Correct. That's the intent.
I think we realized we had a conversation, and we're like, we don't really know what a lot of these things do. So let's find out.
We're going to bring more blue to you.
That's it. We'll have to get you one of these shirts, Greg.
All right, fair. I'm in.
We'll work on it.
I just wear my blue hoodie. I'm good.
That's fine. Well, you know, Greg in an orange hoodie is kind of
the Florida college team right now. Orange and blue, right?
That's right. Get it done.
Hey, have a great weekend, everybody. And thanks again for watching. And we'll see everyone on the next one.
Take care.
Thank you so much.